So let me head back to the open world, and then we'll start talking about my final thoughts. What I liked, what I wasn't so happy with, and what we can expect from the rest of this playthrough. So we've got the new game plus option because of the 1.03 patch. Not interested in that because don't have the time to start playing all over again. But what I could definitely do is do some more quests, and that's something that I'll get to a little bit later on. So Chapter 15, End the Road, call Umbra and tour the world at your leisure. You might even find some new treasures buried right under your nose. There were some locked doors inside the tombs and that kind of thing, so there's that to do. There's some more quests to do. There's probably places I haven't discovered, so now I'm free to go on Google and browse around and find any other things that I've missed that could be interesting. So let's start talking about the game. Why did it not fully do it for me? Why would I not consider it a masterpiece right up there with the likes of Final Fantasy X and, you know, the other greats? Like, I think Final Fantasy IX would be considered a Final Fantasy great. So would Final Fantasy VII. I haven't played 8, so I can't comment, but, you know, those are the ones I could say that are my top 3 Final Fantasies, with Final Fantasy 13 following them. Of the ones I played, of course. There's still a lot that I still haven't played. So what did I enjoy about this game? One of the things that I was most worried about was the battle system, which I mentioned a fair few times, but it turned out to be okay. I mean, I quite enjoyed the battle system. It didn't take too long, and actually I ended up completing the game without a single game over, which is something I don't think I've done before in a Final Fantasy, which was interesting. And I mean, you saw that I wasn't particularly skilled at the game. I mean, I was okay, probably at best. But I guess that just goes to show it wasn't a particularly difficult game. I mean, the items were very useful because we don't have a white mage type thing. The items were very useful. They got you out of trouble quite often, and you could freeze the game to use them. So that was a very easy way to wriggle your way out of trouble. So in that sense, it was good. And it still seems like there's definitely enough challenges in the game, which is also good because I'm only level 43. We saw that Demon's Wall thing at level 84. That was the highest thing that I saw. We saw a level 70 thing as well in Insomnia, so there's still a lot to do. And some of the battles I had during the game were pretty intense. They were difficult. They took a long time. They drained resources a lot. I had to make preparations. So it seemed like there was a decent balance. It didn't seem quite as tactical as some of the other Final Fantasies, but it wasn't all just kind of button smashing, just go insane. So in that sense, they've got a decent balance going. There was a bit of magic there. I would have liked to have seen a bit more white mage type stuff being needed as well, but I guess that doesn't suit what we've got going on here in terms of, you know, the concept of the whole world and the characters and what's happening. So yeah, because there's 4 guys and, you know, and their weapons, it has to be that kind of game. But that's something I still would have kind of liked to see. Oh, we get to play with these on. Nice. That's pretty cool. It's a little bit overkill now for regular story, but still.
About some light.
Sounds good.
Let me just get the volume back up a bit. So yeah, what was I saying? So the actual gameplay side of things I quite enjoyed. It was a lot less worse than I'd feared. So that's a plus for me. Definitely enjoyed the gameplay side of things. I enjoyed the way the open world is structured. The scale of the open world is good. I mean, it's manageable. It's big, but it's still manageable, which works for me. There's multiple ways to travel it. There's fast travel. There's plenty of like hidden little things. I enjoyed the mini game, like the fishing was good for me. I like that. Even like, you know, the food thing was a little bit weird for me at first, but I feel like it added a nice little dynamic to it. Just a different way to prepare yourself. So even if you're under level for something, you can kind of boost yourself up and make preparations for it. So I quite enjoyed that. Visually, you know, no complaints here. Looked pretty stunning. The only thing that really sticks in my mind is the hair sometimes. Like I said, that's just probably something that they just can't. With the technology they have, this is the best they can manage. I'm not talking about at the moment, but I'm talking about some scenes where when you get close, the hair gets a bit dodgy. You guys know what I mean. So that was the only minor thing that I had visually, but in general, look very nice. I mean, the open world is lovely. The FMVs, all that kind of stuff, all very well choreographed, all the things you kind of come to expect. So no worries here. The soundtrack I thought was strong. It was a good soundtrack. Some really good pieces in there. Some really epic boss battle themes. Some really good somber things as well. Okay, some more casual stuff available as well. So all in all, I think it was one of the stronger Final Fantasy soundtracks. Definitely had some good ones in there. What else? The story scenes, I mean, when they were there, I thought they were pretty good indeed. I mean, it's the kind of thing you come to expect from Final Fantasy. You know that the FMVs...
Iris is truly a caring soul.
Like you? No wonder you get along like wildfire.
We do have much in common, like our tales of picking up after the prince.
Glad I could be of service.
Yeah, you just know that Square Enix is gonna nail the FMVs and the story and all that kind of thing. I thought Noctis was voice acted very well, especially like in that final scene around the campfire, where he was kind of opening up to them, just thanking his friends for being by his side through everything. I thought that was a good performance as well. I mean, anyone that says that the English voices are trash is just being an arsehole. I mean, you can of course prefer the Japanese, but just saying that the English voices are terrible, I think you're just being harsh, you're just being an arsehole. So I think that's just disrespectful to the people that put in all their time and effort to make this thing happen. So I would disagree with any statement that says that the English voices were terrible, or that the Japanese voices were terrible. These days, there's not really such thing as terrible voice acting in these kind of games, anyway.
It's nice to not have to kill anything.
So yeah, enjoyed that. I like the idea of the quest, the way the quest is structured. There's some variety in there. There's some more search and find. There's some more just straight up just killing stuff. You know, taking the photographs. I quite enjoyed the variety in that. Some people might find the quest a bit boring, but I feel like they're quite good. I mean, good enough that I don't mind continuing to do them. Especially some more high-level challenging bosses. You know, I always love that kind of thing. So definitely going to be checking that out as well. The banter between the four. I mean, our four protagonists here. I definitely had fun. I had fun playing as these guys. They had a good amount of banter between them. Some genuinely funny stuff. I love the fact they were into their puns. I mean, I found that quite funny. They each had their own unique character. You know, Prompto, especially when we get into the tombs and stuff, he was funny. I mean, it was close to being annoying, but I think they balanced it just enough. They didn't get too annoying, but yeah, I mean, it was a fun trip with these four. Seriously, I definitely enjoyed myself in that regard. Now, some of the stuff that I found less. Oh, Jared's grave is here. I didn't know that.
I'm sorry. Thanks for everything.
Okay, so let's get on to the things that I wasn't so fond of. The supporting cast felt a little bit weak to me. Like, you know, your Lunas and Iris and Talca and all this stuff. It didn't quite do it for me. Like I felt like they could have been a little bit better. Luna, I mean, yes, they established the whole fact that Noctis and Luna are these childhood sweethearts type thing, but yeah, before we even really got to meet her, she died, and I know that's meant to be tragic and we're meant to like feel the pain of that and stuff, but I feel like they could have done a little bit more with Luna, to be honest. We lost her before we ever really had her. I'm sure that's the way she was designed to be in the first place, but just my personal feeling that there could have been a little bit more there. Iris just kind of tagged along. I mean, we took a tour around the Stalin with her. There wasn't really much more to Iris than that. And I mean, Talca and those guys are just there to help push the story along a little bit. So there wasn't really that much there. There was Core, which he was kind of cool when he came in, but he kind of fizzled out. He was around at the start, and I thought he might end up being like this big bro, like badass, you know, helpful guy type throughout the story, but he kind of came in and then disappeared again. Didn't end up doing too much. We had Ravus, who seemed like he was going to be a significant character at the start, but then we just see him just randomly just dead. We don't see him get killed at all. He gets killed off screen. And we have a few letters to try and help us fill in the gaps, but Ravus kind of just, you know, they don't really end his story in a satisfying way. Then we have the Emperor, like Idolus or whatever his name was.
So, what's your plan if your glasses break?
I've got another pair, just in case.
The man always has a plan.
He seemed like he was a very important character at the start, like one of the main like bad guys, sitting on the throne, sitting on the crystal, ordering Luna's death, all that stuff. And then we saw like the empty, his suit just empty, like as if he turned into a demon or something. And so yeah, he kind of disappeared out of the story. He got killed off screen or turned into a demon or whatever. So he was shaping up like he was going to be one of the main bad guys, and then when Arden decided to take over the story, those guys just completely disappeared. So that was another, I think, shortcoming. So like I said, the supporting cast, the protagonists as well, but especially like the bad guy side, you know, was a bit weak in that regard. And I think it all comes down to this whole incompleteness that people were talking about at the start. So it definitely does seem like that's what's happened. Now Arden, I have a feeling that he's a bit of a Marmite type villain as well. I think I mentioned this for Kuja in Final Fantasy IX. I feel like some people are probably going to say that he's a great villain, and some people are going to say that he's a bit crap. My feeling is that up until near the end of the game, he seemed really good. Like, I love the way he comes into the story. He's very kind of innocuous. You know that something's off about him, and then you learn that he's the Imperial Chancellor, and you're like, oh shit, okay, he's a bad guy, right? Surely he's a bad guy, but he keeps helping you out and, you know, letting you through, and he doesn't really come out and say, hey, I'm the bad guy. So, and then once the story really like gets going,
before,
then you find
yes,
out what
it
he's really
is.
about. And I like the way he kind of just like comes into the story and really takes over by the time you get to the end of the game. So I think he's probably the one that's going to be considered a bit incomplete, because we know that he's been around for a very, very long time, and I guess his entire issue is, you know, to wait for this chosen king to appear so that he can get his revenge. Now, I understand that, but I mean, when we had the final boss battle, he had very similar powers to Noctis, and I don't really understand why. I mean, that bit at the end of chapter 13 where he's kind of having that, giving us that revelation about his past. I think he mentioned that his surname, that his like family name or whatever matches Noctis's name, and I guess that gives him the same bloodline. But was he the true king before? Is he the first true king? So do we actually have a battle of true kings happening here? I can't really tell 100% if that's true. I'm going to need to read up on it to make sure I'm right about that. But I'm pretty sure that bit wasn't really fleshed out that well. And I mean, how did Ifrit come into it? How was Ifrit a part of the story? Was he partners with Arden? I don't know. And then again, I think during that little scene before they started fighting, he said like, "Make us proud" or something. So I'm not 100% sure what he's all about. Now I don't know if it was all there in the story. It just wasn't presented very well, so I didn't quite get it. But there are definitely some question marks about Arden, and I think people are feeling like they're not deliberate question marks. It's just that they didn't flesh his story out quite enough. And this is something that I read from a fair few people, so I'm pretty sure it's not just me that feels this about Arden. So the current comments I'm giving you are about, you know, are before we get any additional DLC, if that's going to happen. I mean, people are saying that Square Enix is going to be giving us some free DLC that's going to have more cutscenes and some more story to flesh out what's incomplete, but I have no idea when that's going to come or how that's going to work, so I can't really comment on it. But yeah, I think chapter 13 especially is a glaring kind of weak point of the game, unfortunately. It was really long, like obscenely long, and a lot of it was just, it felt just like padding. It was there for no particular reason, and all we got was like a burst of story at the end of chapter 13, and that was pretty much it. So
Me, I guess?
I was not impressed with chapter 13.
Leave it to me.
What? No, I was kidding.
It wasn't horrible, but it was definitely weak. I mean, it was definitely weak compared to the chapters that came before it. And at a critical stage in the game, that's not really a stage where you want a chapter to be weak. I mean, if chapter 4 was weak, you can kind of live with it, but it was just a bad time for it. It shouldn't have happened. So yeah, not good. So yeah, I mean, that's going to lead me on to boss battles, because Arden's boss battle was kind of cool in concept, because I do remember saying before I went in that it would be nice if we fought Arden's most like human form. He didn't turn into some monster thing that we had to fight, and that happened. But the first time we had the boss battle where Noctis goes into like his super armature mode or whatever that's called, like where he's a total badass and he's like warping around all over the place. That kind of felt cool against Leviathan, you know, against such a huge enemy. And it was the first time we unlocked this incredible strength. But then against Arden, it just got a bit too much. Like, I'm not, again, it's the kind of battle that I'm not used to. I'm not used to this super fast paced, like super action type battling. I'm much more used to the methodical stuff. Even the regular in-game fighting was something that was kind of on the upper levels of what I enjoy. And when Noctis goes into that mode, it's just, at first it feels fun, like, oh yeah, I'm so fast, I'm so powerful, but after like 30 seconds it just starts to become a bit of a bore for me. So that's a much more personal feeling, but the final boss battle didn't really do it for me. That leads me again to the summons, which was pretty weak in my opinion. I mean, I remember in the Dusk Eye demo, when we first saw what Ramuh could do, I was like, man, the summons are going to be incredible in this game. I was looking forward to it so much. And then when it really happened, I mean, it just seems like they worked very hard on the overdrives, you can tell. I mean, the overdrive sequences looked incredible. But I think the reason they made them look so incredible is just because they wanted them as set pieces more than like an aid in battle. I mean, the game just gave you a prompt for when they wanted you to summon, really, so that you could make use of their amazing moves. But for me, that's not really how it should work. I mean, I wasn't too impressed that the summons were kind of relegated to just mere set pieces, because we did all this work to kind of to be able to have them, and the fact that they're used in that way seemed a little bit crap, if you ask me. I mean, there weren't that many summons anyway. I mean, I remember seeing Diamond Dust and Ramuh and Leviathan, so we ended up seeing 3 summons, I think. So that wasn't very impressive. I feel like they could have done more with the summons, but that's, again, my opinion. Everything is, I guess. So summons were a little bit crap. Story-wise, again, I'll probably go back to the kind of stuff I was talking about when we went to Luna Freya's manor or mansion or whatever that place was. The open world, I've enjoyed. I've mentioned that already. The open world is nice. Is it something that should have been used at, you know, for so long in the game, like at the start when you're trying to establish the story, the characters? Is it really a good time for it? I don't think so. I think a few people, like watching the walkthrough, said like, oh, you know, stop doing so many side quests near the start of the game. And because I wanted to learn the gameplay a little bit better, I was doing a lot of side quests. But the story was slow enough at the beginning as it is. I mean, they didn't have too much story at the start. It was very slow. It was sprinkled, and when you add in some side quests as well, you really do get sidetracked from the story. And of course you could say that, well, don't do any sidetracks, just go with the story. But at the end of the day, you're presented with a giant open world, so there's conflicting interests there. Part of you wants to go on with the story to really know what's going on and to get to know the characters properly, but then part of you wants to get to know the world and to get to know the game.
Hey,
and
why don't we take a group picture
I guess
over
when
there?
those two things clash, it comes at the expense of one or the other. And I think at the start of the game,
I think not.
for the first like
man.
15-20 hours, it came at the expense of the story and of the characters. Yeah, I mean, my preference, like I said, would be to have something more linear at the beginning. It doesn't have to be like totally linear, it doesn't have to be a corridor, but just something more linear to really like push the story, push the motivation, really establish the characters like nicely. Then perhaps, you know, once the stakes start to rise, you start to gain a bit more power, then kind of unleash us into this open world, so we can really start to use our power and to explore the world a little bit more, because we've been given a taste of it, and then we'd be able to actually explore it, so it might even be a little bit sweeter. It's like we've seen all these cool places, and then finally someone unlocks the door to the entire world, and you can just have a look around and just and do as you please. So Final Fantasy 13, I mentioned as always as an example for this, the way they structured Chapter 11 and then pushed you back into the linear stuff of the story was something I felt worked quite well, and I thought this game, they tried to have a similar structure, but they didn't give you the story at the start. It was just kind of open world for the first 15-20 hours, and then they sent you down the corridor for the last 10. So for me, that kind of comes at the expense of the storytelling, because again, I don't feel like there was actually that much story here. I mean, when you peel away all of the open world stuff, all of the side quests, This game took 32 hours to complete, despite spending a fair bit of time on side quests. I mean, I probably spent an hour on fishing alone. So when you peel all of that back, you're probably going to find that the story is a little less fleshed out than some of the other Final Fantasies that we've played. So yeah, all in all, the way that they structured the open world and the linearity was something that I liked having both, but I feel like they could have implemented it a little bit better, in my opinion. So I mean, just before I finish off on this, there's something that I think it's not just about trying to make it more linear sometimes, because the stuff that I mentioned so far is about making the game a bit more linear at the start to help the story. But if we think back to the ending of the game, where we got to the world of Ruin, where it was constant darkness and there was, danger everywhere, they put us on rails for that bit. I mean, they didn't let us explore that world. That world should have been open world as well, man. We should have got a chance to explore that, and that's really a shame. I think there was a big opportunity missed there with that section. I really wish that bit was made open world as well. Maybe you found everyone individually in a different part of town. So, what does that leave? We've talked about the combat, we've talked about the soundtrack, we've talked about the characters, we've talked about the story, we've talked about the open world. I mean, I think that covers most of the main bases. So how did it make me feel? Let's talk about feelings, because that's how I always judge a game. Bioshock Infinite is a great example of this. It's one of those games where when I went back and I really analysed it, it wasn't as great as I thought it was, but nothing can take away from that first experience. The first time I finished playing it, I was absolutely blown away. So with this game, I'll probably go back to what I said before and say that it felt incredible in parts. I think between chapter 9 and 12, I think, was when this game peaked for me. There it was great. I mean, if the whole game was like it was between chapter 9 and 12, even at the detriment of the open world, I think I would have rated this game higher than I did. But chapter 9 through 12 was incredible. There were some good bits before that as well in the open world, but chapter 13 was weak. The final boss I felt was a bit weak. I mean, even the Ifrit battle, yeah, it wasn't as tough as I was expecting. I mean, the Behemoth King before that was a more difficult battle, and it shouldn't really be like that. So Ifrit was too easy. The final boss was a bit too easy. They had the set piece summon in there, which ended up taking away almost half of Arden's HP, and that was when we were actually fighting in one-on-one without this super duper arms your power thing. So it was a more like straight engaging fight, and I ended up losing the chance to have that battle because I followed the prompt that the game told me to use. So while seeing the summon was cool, I felt like it kind of wasted like half of the boss battle for me. So that was a bit of a shame. If I was to do it a second time, I probably wouldn't summon the Leviathan there. But I hadn't seen it in action at all in an overdrive, so why not use it? There's nothing else I could have done, to be honest. So yeah, it had its great moments and it had its lackluster moments as well. And when I tried to think of it as a whole, tried to think, how will I remember this game? I don't consider this game to be any kind of masterpiece. I have not seen any reviews for this game, but if it's got a ton of 10 out of 10s, I'm going to be a little bit annoyed, because they did that for Metal Gear Solid 5, and I disagreed with that passionately. That game was no way a 10 out of 10, seriously. I mean, if that's a 10 out of 10, then that's disrespectful to Metal Gear Solid 1 and even the first 4 Metal Gear Solid games. That's just disrespectful.
Hey, Noct, let's take a souvenir shot of you in the volcano. I bet I can get a real good one. What do you say?
I'm not doubting your skills, but I'm not in the mood.
Are you ever in the mood?
And I would say the same of this. I mean, if you're giving this game a 10 out of 10, what you're effectively saying is that it's on the same level as the greatest Final Fantasies ever made. And personally, I cannot say that. I mean, like I said, good game, had fun playing it, had some great moments, had a pretty decent story, but no, there's no way can I say that this game is a masterpiece, unfortunately. So yeah, those are my closing thoughts on the game. Like I mentioned before, I don't know how this DLC thing is going to work, when it's going to arrive, what exactly it's going to contain. Is it going to contain enough to really change my opinion of the game? Maybe it will, maybe it won't, I don't know. But if it's true that, again, I mean, part of this incompleteness with regards to the story, it wasn't quite fleshed out as much as I would have liked it to have been because of, time restraints or you know, monetary stuff, then that's annoying because that's another game that's fallen victim to this. Once again, Metal Gear Solid 5 being a great example of another such game. But at the end of the day, that's not going to change my opinion. I'm not going to give the game a pass because of that. This is the product that they released. This is the product that people have paid for. So I can only judge it on what they've provided here. So yeah, I mean, that's all I've got to say about this game for now. I would give it, if I had to give it a score, I mean, not thinking too much about it, I'd have to think about the kind of scores I would give other games to really, for this score to really make sense. But probably like an 8, I would say. It's a little, I would say, a little bit better than Final Fantasy 13, but for me personally, not by that much. Not really by that much. I mean, when I compare against the pantheon of greats of Final Fantasy, it falls short, but it's definitely not a bad Final Fantasy game. Was it worth a 10-year wait? Was it worth all of the hype? Was it worth all of the excitement? Again, probably no for me, but that doesn't mean that I didn't have fun playing it, and it doesn't mean I'm not going to have fun continuing to play it, because what do we still have left? I mean, despite it not being a masterpiece in my eyes, that doesn't mean I'm not going to sink some more time into this game, because like I said, I've had fun, man. I have enjoyed it, and the way in which I'm going to keep enjoying it is by doing some more missions. The cure for insomnia is a level 45 final mission. Okay, well, at least we learned that. So it's slightly underleveled, I guess, for that, but not by much. There's a lot more missions to do. I don't really feel like doing all the missions. I mean, some of these missions are like just meh, you know, like if it's combat related, I'll probably try to do it. If it's not, then I might skip some of them if they're boring, but we'll have to see. So I am going to definitely continue to attack these quests, especially the more difficult ones, have some fun battles.
Perhaps these are the Bean Bandits.
Time to save the legumes, boys!
Because when you are fighting against something very big, like, I don't know, a Behemoth King, or when you're fighting against really tough enemies, it is extremely fun, I have to say. So that's something I'm going to continue doing. But final comment is that it could have been better, and I wish that it was. But can't have everything, man. I guess got to be happy that we got this much. I can't say that this game was a disappointment. I can just say that it left me wanting a little bit more. So that's it, guys. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate your time, taking the time to watch the series. These series are always long, and especially when it's the first time playthrough, it's always a little bit more difficult to watch because I started the series late. A lot of people who are watching had already played the game. Some people had already completed it. So once again, as usual, you know, everyone, they already know how to do stuff. So watching me sucking at certain things will probably get annoying for them. But thank you for pushing through. Do let me know your opinions on the game. I mean, I'm now that I'm done with the game, I'm happy to discuss stuff with people. Maybe you guys will change my mind about certain things. Maybe I'm wrong about certain things. I don't know. All I can give you is my fresh opinion here. I've not had time to sit down and really think about things too much, but this is just my raw thoughts having completed it. So yeah, thanks for the ride, Final Fantasy 15. It's been fun. I will continue from here on with the quests, and I will see you guys there. But in terms of the story, it is goodbye. This was Final Fantasy 15. I hope you guys enjoyed it, because I definitely did. Even though I wanted more, that doesn't mean I didn't enjoy it. Thank you for watching. Take care.